Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, February 7th, and the time is 5:34. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the School Building Committee to order. And we'll start with a roll call. Mr. Avil? Mr. Devon?
Here.
Superintendent Lee?
Here.
President Hume could not be with us this evening. Mayor Kokoris?
Here.
Mr. Spellman?
Here.
Ms. DiCello?
Here.
Okay, and the chair is here. Those are all the members we have this evening with us, and we'll add an additional member later on the agenda tonight. First item we have is consideration of approval of the minutes from January 10th, 2022. Everybody should have received and had an opportunity to review these. Any questions or discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. Next item is, folks remember at our last meeting we recognized a former school building committee member, Cyril Chafe. He was on the school building committee as a school committee appointee, and we have with us this evening new member and also chair of the school committee, Lisa Heeger, with us as the newly appointed member representing the school committee along with Mr. Devon. I don't know, Lisa, if you wanted to say anything or kind of address the committee before we vote to officially have you rejoin the committee.
No, I'm just absolutely happy to be back, and I look forward to continue the work with the school building committee, so thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Heeger? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Great. There's been a motion to accept Lisa Heeger's appointment to the school building committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, that is unanimous. Welcome back. We're happy
Thank
to
you so
have
much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Moving right along to South Middle School. Before we get to the update, I know we have folks from Hill and from MDS here with us this evening. As folks, I think, had heard, we were scheduled to host the groundbreaking at South Middle School this morning, but due to the anticipated bad weather, we decided it made sense to hold off a couple days. So the groundbreaking has been rescheduled to this Wednesday, February 9th at 10:30 a.m. at South Middle School. We will be in the back parking lot near the basketball court. We hope anyone that's interested is available to join us for what will undoubtedly be a historic and really celebratory worthy event. So we look forward to seeing everybody there on Wednesday. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike. Doug. Wonderful. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug Murray from Hill International, Senior Product Manager. We have a few items for you, I think, in the handout. The first is our dashboard, which we'll be presenting every month, try to give you a snapshot of where the project is on a monthly basis. Our second items are some invoices and financial stuff, and a couple of amendments to consider for the project and a schedule update. On the project dashboard, you can see this will be presented each month, try to give you an idea of where we are on schedule, some major impacts that are items that have occurred during the month, what we're looking ahead to do, and as well as a budget update. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner, the project has started. We're out there on site. We've got our trailers in place. Haven't gotten electricity yet, but we're hoping soon. We did the relocation of the hydrant on Peach Street. We have last month held the community forum and advised everyone. We've also notified all the abutters of the work ongoing and have filed for the grade in accordance with the grading permit, and continue to do site fencing, soil removal. We're getting prepared for the blasting to occur. The notices have gone out. They are required to send out 3 notices. 2 of them have gone out. The third one, which is a certified letter, I believe goes out Wednesday. So that requests each of the abutters to, notify them if they'd like a survey of their property prior to any blasting work starting. Blasting, unfortunately, is not really that exciting for this sort of project. They drill, they're going to leave the dirt on top, drill into the stone, the rock beneath, and then shoot the blast with all the stuff on top to limit any, any debris from moving around. In terms of work that's ongoing after the blasting, we expect to start foundation sometime in late March, and then structural steel showing up hopefully around May 1st, and then, with the intent of the having building completed or enclosed in early 2023 and be ready for fall for student occupancy. In terms of current budget, you want to take this or you want me? Want me to keep going? Okay, keep going. In terms of budget, on the bottom, on the left-hand side, you'll see the original budget is the first column. That was our baseline budget. The second, and the approved budget. And the third column with some minor authorized changes ongoing, which Duckland can address if anyone has any questions. Then we are currently in the second set of columns there, the committed costs. The construction bid came in at $66,600,700, which was below budget. So we have some uncommitted costs of $2.58 million, which can be put to contingency and other uses. However, the state is going to want their share back, which we have to file the PFA agreement in the coming week to address that. Then you see design services are Miller Dyer Spears in their, or MDS in their consultants. Administrative includes Hill and our groups. And then FF&E obviously will start procurement of that coming forward. Then the contingencies down the bottom, which stand right now at a total project cost of $76,030,570. Then on the next page, we have our invoices, which we are bringing tonight to get approved for Hill International and Miller Dyer Spears, and the first submission from Bacon Construction, and Bacon's in a total of $647,531. Now, do you want to address the thing? Yeah. Mike's going to step in about how we proceed with getting invoices approved and things.
Before we get on to the financial piece, I just wanted to open it up. I do have one quick question that's construction related and wanted to give the committee an opportunity to ask any questions. So before I do that, does anybody have any questions? Mr. Devon? No problem.
A couple things. We know we have the contingency, construction contingency, as well as the owner's contingency, owner being us, that we have $50,325 that we used. Okay? Like anything else, and as you start looking at some of these others, we have pay codes and things like that. They mean everything to you. But for us, it doesn't mean anything. So in other words, we're probably going to look towards notes in some type of another column as to what that cost code is, because it just makes it easier for us to go from here down to here, back and forth. Now, I know you've got amendments and you're going to go through that, but in the spirit of us knowing more as to where the money's going, could we have a proper description out to the left-hand side? I know that there were times on the East project, when it got detail-oriented, that we would have those types of notes so that we can look and find out what the decision, how $50,325 was spent on our contingency versus another way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do any other members of the committee, or did you want to address that now, or do we want to, is that something we can do, just a more detailed breakdown as we move forward?
I think we've got some of the backup in here. We can go through that, but if you want to do the construction questions first, and then we can get into that.
Perfect. Does anybody else have any construction-related questions? Leon?
The long lead items as far as getting materials for the project? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but
Yeah, as of today, we have not been informed of anything that should be a delay, because we do have, across, we do have time for certain of those electrical items, we're hearing there are issues with, but we are, proceeding with submittals and things like that now to get those products ordered in time.
okay. Yeah. Thanks.
That's definitely something we're keeping an eye on with Bacon, and we've asked them to basically review it every week, so that if there's something that comes up, it's not there today, but it's there tomorrow, we'll know about it within a week, trying to be proactive on that, and we're trying to get the submittals maybe a little bit ahead of schedule so that we can get things ordered a little bit more. Maybe not quite as lean as we were a few years ago as far as lean construction. Trying to get it here and then worry about getting it installed.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I know we have some folks with us in the audience. Does anybody have any questions on construction? Okay, great. So my question is about blasting. It's been a fairly hot topic since it was announced at our last community meeting. It's created quite a stir in the neighborhood because I think when you say blasting, people have an impression that there's going to be rocks falling and, you know, trees falling over and debris everywhere. So I'm just wondering if Doug or you're somebody from the team can just talk a little bit more for the folks that are watching at home. What is blasting? What is the likely effect, if any, the neighbors are going to feel from it? And what steps we've taken to make sure that everybody's notified that it's coming and what to do if they have any impact?
Okay, in terms of notifications, as I said, there were the blasting company who works for our site work contractor. He hired a surveyor who has sent out notification to all the abutters per the requirements of the town and the state law to notify anybody within 250 feet of the blasting site of the current plan. And then they will do a survey of the house, of the residence or any building, including the school is going to get looked at, and document any existing defects or anything like that, so that we know the status of each property prior to any work starting. Again, the third notice, they're given 3 notices. The first 2 go out by mail. The third one will go out by certified mail on Wednesday. Then they could do that survey, and then I think we're talking about later in the month, the 5th, 18th or 19th, they'll start by drilling holes through the existing surface into the rock on about a 20-foot grid is what they're projecting now. When they start drilling, and it's, 3-inch hole or so, 2-inch hole, when they start drilling, they'll get an idea of how hard the rock is going to be when they do. And as they go down into as they drill each hole, they get a kind of a profile of where the top of the rock is by drilling the holes. They start at 20 feet. If they find the rock is loose and they're going to need more blasting, or they'll increase those holes, and they'll give themselves an idea of what they think they're going to need. It could end up being 10 feet, could end up being 5. Actually, looser rock absorbs the energy because the rock itself shifts rather than fracturing. So that information, they'll go through and they'll drill. They'll provide to us a profile of the rock, so we'll know exactly or pretty close to what sort of profile and how deep they'll be blasting. And then after that, they'll load the holes. There's as for how many blasts they do in a day, it's going to go on for a couple of weeks. They may not blast every day. It depends on what, comes out and how it works. But then before they blow, they clear the site. They blow a horn 3 times. I think it's at 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and 1 minute. That's probably what's going to be the biggest distraction to everybody because, it's a loud horn. And then when the shot goes off, they'll have covered it with mats to prevent any soil from being projected up. And the reality is it probably won't be noticed by most people. There's always a chance that they'll feel a vibration, but for the most part, it's localized, it's controlled. They don't get carried away. It's not Hollywood, so they're not trying to make it look good. They want it to be unnoticeable.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Certainly.
When you have these types of situations, obviously you do your drilling heights and you get your profile and you know what your depths are and all things that go with that. You cover it with the mats. There's going to be a warning horn too.
Yeah.
It's been my experience that the warning horn is more disruptive than the actual blast because it's just, it's not an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It just isn't. It's disappointing.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, the kids are going to want to go to the window and watch and then be
it's
thoroughly
just-
disappointed.
After the first, second time, it's like, but it's the horn that usually startles people. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Before we move on to the finances, one last opportunity for construction-related questions. Okay, great. Certainly.
I was impressed with the fact that within the first 2 days, they got the site, shall we say, locked off. I like the fact that they get their erosion control in. The fact that they went after, what I believe the trees as of last week were all down. So what I'm seeing is a contract that's gone in there, and along with Hill and whatnot, because it doesn't happen without the management part to it, that they've really kind of hit the ground running. I know that Mr. Rennie, you were improved with the fact that a few of the gentlemen from Bacon went in, were meeting with teachers and things like that. So we have a contract that wants to fully engage all the way around. We know that Hill does. It's always been that way. MDS, same thing. So I'm looking forward to a great project. So far, they've exceeded where I thought we would.
That's great.
Thank you, Madam
That's
Chair.
great to hear. Thank you. Okay, Mike.
So I'm going to let the team talk specifically about the actual commitments and budget adjustments and invoices that we're looking to get approved tonight. But what I did want to talk about is just the process and the procedure. I'm going to say for the most part, what we've been doing here at South is what was voted on for East. And just to remind everybody, at East, what we had said is if a commitment, so the commitment could be a contract, it could be a purchase order, or it could be a change order to an existing contract or purchase order. If that commitment was under $100,000, and if it was within the overall project budget, we were allowed to meet with the finance director, Ed Cronin, and with the superintendent, the time was Frank Hackett, then became Jim Lee, and review it with them, and it would be approved if they were comfortable with it. And once it was approved, then we would bring it to the committee at the next meeting. So when we brought it to committee, it was being acknowledged, it wasn't being approved or rejected. Very similarly to that with invoices, the agreement that we had made at East is if the invoice was within budget and within the contract that was already previously approved, that we could just process those invoices. So it was going to bring forward that we're kind of at that point with the contractor coming on board. Maybe we either reaffirm that or confirm that that is the same process, or if there's a slightly different process you want to do with South, we just wanted to make sure we kind of got on the record to make sure we understood exactly what this committee wants to do. Regardless of how we do that, one of the things we'd like to do is process it with this sheet here. Like Mr. Devon mentioned earlier, we can add some notes and things like that. In addition to the notes, when you get this electronically, you actually have all the invoices and all the change orders and everything as backup supporting that. So it's kind of the first time you've seen that, the dashboard. If you looked in the monthly reports, you may have seen the dashboard before on other projects, but we want to bring that right to the committee here so that it's a little more open and a little more transparent on that. But as the invoices get processed, any invoices that were processed basically in 2021 or earlier, we have not added to this list, but we said, kind of starting fresh with the contractor coming on board, we wanted to start making sure we have an actual list and get you all the documents and everything like that. So I think regardless of the approval status and how we're going to do that, we're going to bring this list, or we recommend that we'd like to bring this list, but we'd also like to just have the committee maybe take action of how you would like to process commitments and how you would like to process invoices.
So to kind of drill down a little bit, it sounds like what we're talking about is anything under $100,000, Hill would review with the superintendent and the finance director from the school department, and anything over $100,000 would come to the committee for approval before any action was taken.
Right, and the only other maybe caveat on that, if we review something under 100,000 and the superintendent and finance director were not comfortable, then they would defer to bring it to committee as well.
So I think the only change I might want to add is to add myself or a representative from the committee to the under $100,000 review, so that the committee can be apprised of what's going on, but also so that the mayor's office can be apprised of what's going on. Does anybody else have any thought or comment on utilizing the same protocol with that minor adjustment? Yes, Mr. Devon.
Yeah. We know that this is a very aggressive job schedule, so I think it's important that we try and streamline things as much as possible. I did see where being reactionary, being very quick to be able to move in the last, even though East was its own little project, I think there's, shall we say, a learning curve with that, with the superintendent's office, with the business manager's office. Adding a person from the mayor's office, just another person on the call, I can't see where that would be hindering at all. We know that sometimes if you lower that from 100 down to 50, you quadruple anyway. Some of the conversations you have, and where this is an aggressive schedule, it really is, that I think that would hinder the project. I'm comfortable with the way things are, with an amendment that we have with amendment that we have a person from the mayor's office in representation.
Okay. So I don't think that we need a formal vote, but it sounds like unless there's anybody that disagrees, we'll move forward utilizing the same practice we use for East with the one adjustment, where either myself or a representative from the mayor's office will be added to that under $100,000 review. And then it will still come to this committee, but it will be for acknowledgement rather than approval.
Correct.
And then anything over 100,000 will come to the committee for approval before action is taken.
And so that's commitments, and then on the invoices, it's the practice previously was regardless of the value, if it was within budget and if it was within the contracts, and we would never bring an invoice that isn't within a contract anyway, so, but if that's the process, it just allows us to have a little more freedom, especially with the contractor where the large values, sometimes we get the requisition, say, a day or two after a meeting, we might not have another meeting for, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and we don't want to be holding up that process if it's
Certainly. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the team. We do have 2 commitments. There are 2 amendments to the Hill contract, and we'll talk a little bit about those. And then because of those commitments, we have some budget adjustments. So as far as commitments go, whenever we have a commitment that's over and above the budget on that line item, we move contingency up into that line item so that we can cover that cost. So that's what the budget adjustment section is. And then the invoice section is, again, I can have the team go through that, but it's the invoices that we're presenting for this month.
Great, thank you.
If you need to.
Come on up, Declan.
All right.
She's avoided it as long as you could.
Yeah. The 2 commitments, or the 2 amendments to the Hill contract that we presented are Amendment 4, which is for a drone to do a flyover of the site monthly. They will circle the site from a couple hundred feet, a few hundred feet, and then each month that will be packaged and can be posted on the website. It's a good way to keep track and keep the public informed of what's going on. It'll encircle the whole site all the way across, crossing Peach Street and going around both sides and then over to on Richard and behind the site. So you'll get a full 360 of the site. The second amendment is for a time-lapse video camera, which, as we currently stand, we would place on top of the existing school, which would have a view directly looking at the school. The new construction, be able to turn to the left to look at the entry, as well as the right to look down to the existing parking lot and where the entry from Kenmore is. That you did that at East is what I wanted to say. It was the same sort of program that was instituted at East for the time-lapse camera, and it would also allow the project team to look and review things on site. They actually can remotely control the camera, as well as we'd be able to put those time-lapse videos up on for the public to view.
I think this is really exciting and also a really cool addition to this project. I think being able to show the public not only a time lapse, but the drone shot of what the property looks like currently and what it's going to look like month to month as construction continues. And I think being able to utilize the website and social media to really put that information out there and let not just residents, but folks around town and in our surrounding communities, see exactly the development and the growth that's happening on the site as we move forward with this incredible project, first new school in an incredibly long time. So to be able to grow literally from the ground up through these tools, I think is really fantastic. And I'm really excited to kind of watch it evolve as we continue over the next several months and year. So does anybody have any questions about these 2 amendments? Okay, so we are looking for approval for both of these. And so we have first amendment number 4. in the amount of $16,500. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the budget adjustment?
So moved.
Thank you. There's been a motion made. Is there a second? Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. And the second one is a budget adjustment in the amount of $17,425. Do you know which is 5? Is 5 to the time lapse or the drone?
5 is for the time-lapse camera, yes.
So we would be looking for a motion to approve the budget adjustment of $17,425 for the time-lapse camera.
So moved.
It's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you. So
Madam
those,
Chair, one question. Do we know that are we purchasing the drone?
No.
Rental, huh?
The drone is a rental. That is an architect who has the services, not MDS, but another architect does this for other projects we've worked on. You are getting the camera, the time-lapse video.
Okay. There's an asset.
are there any other approvals that Hill needs this evening?
Wanted to make sure there was the Military Spears MDS invoice of $15,510 and the 2 international invoices, or the Hill International invoice in the matter of $55,000. Those were basically just bringing them up because you were enacting that process tonight for having the superintendent and finance manager approve.
Okay. So no action is required on those this evening?
Based off of what we've done in the past and what was discussed tonight, as long as people are comfortable within the any questions, but we're going to continue to include those every month in everybody's packages.
Great. Oh, yeah, just a reminder, we can't capture the audio if you're not at the mic. Thank you.
So I think basically, based off of the discussion we had earlier tonight, as well as the practice that has happened before, as long as there's no questions or concerns, I don't know that we need to take action on that other than just, I think in general we'll be acknowledging them every month that those are the invoices that you're going to be seeing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any final questions or comments on South? Great, so just a reminder, we'll be having the groundbreaking at South on Wednesday morning at 10:30. Hope to see everybody there for that. So the next item on the agenda, moving on to the accelerated repair projects at Highlands and Liberty. So we have 2 contract amendments for services that are going to take us through completion of the work. Rob Tedisco from P3 unfortunately is not able to make it this evening, and Ed Cronin is also unavailable. So I have some information that I'll share with the committee, and if you feel comfortable based on that, we can certainly take the votes, and if not, we can table these items to our March meeting. The first is the P3 contract, so everybody should have received that. And what this does is it takes us through from the schematic design phase, which was originally contracted at $15,000, and takes us through to completion for a total of $233,000. That includes construction documents, bidding, construction administration, and then project closeout completion and audit. On the attachment that was attached to the agenda, there was one typo that we caught this afternoon, and it had the new contract total listed at $10,000, but just to be clear, that is $15,000, and the total fee for the P3 contract is going to be $233,000. Broken down by school, for Liberty, the total is $122,000. And that includes, again, schematic design, which has already been completed, construction documents, bidding, and construction administration. And then for Highlands, it's a total of $111,000, again, including those same categories of work. So as I mentioned, what this does is it executes an amendment that carries us through to completion of the projects at Highlands and Liberty for the OPM services that will be provided. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about that? And just so folks know, new budgets have been submitted to the MSBA, and they are going to be voting on the funding agreements for both Highlands and Liberty, expected on their March 3rd of 2022 meeting. No questions. So if folks feel comfortable taking a vote to execute the amendment to take us through to completion of the project, we can go ahead and move forward with that now. Otherwise, there would be a motion to table until the March meeting.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is there a reason the contract is combined and you don't have one for each building?
So my understanding is because P3 is serving as the OPM for both,
For
they were
both.
both accepted into the program. So the overall contract covers services related to both projects, but the information and the breakdowns that we get from them from a budgetary perspective are separated out. So they're running as of right now, Highlands a little bit lower,
Okay.
but pretty close to 50-50 at this point.
Okay. Will the construction contracts be separated out by building?
So they're, same thing, we're getting the breakdowns. And then the other one we have this evening is Johnson Roberts, which is the architect. And so those also are, it's one overarching contract for both schools, but then they've provided breakdown that's individual to each school so that we can see where the money is being allocated from from the design perspective.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Certainly. Anybody from the committee have any other questions? Okay. So at this point, I'd either be looking for a motion to approve the amendment to increase the contract value to $233,000, or it would be a motion to table for review at our March meeting. Motion to approve. It's been a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, so that is unanimous. Thank you for that. They'll be happy to hear. They can keep moving forward. The second one is for Johnson Roberts. Same concept, except in much smaller font for those of you who received the attachment that went along with the supporting documentation. The original contract with Johnson Roberts for both Highlands and Liberty was $132,720, and that was to get us through the schematic design phase. That has been completed, and they've now provided us with cost for construction, bidding, construction admin, and completion, bringing the total contract value, including schematic design, to $470,300. I did have an opportunity to speak to Rob Tedisco about the numbers, and for full disclosure, he did indicate that the fees included by Johnson Roberts did seem a little bit on the high end from the DCAM standards, but they are consistent and on par with what the MSBA has been seeing across similar and comparable roof repair projects. So he was comfortable with the numbers that they provided us and how they were broken down by school and by phase. Does anybody have any questions about the Johnson Roberts amendment? Okay, so same question. If folks are comfortable with the information we have, we would be looking for a motion to approve to increase the total contract value to $470,300, or it would be a motion to table to the March meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There's been a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. They'll be happy to hear. They can continue moving forward with those. And they hopefully will be with us at our March meeting to provide a more detailed update. Okay, so I don't see any members of the community. Again, just want to recognize we have folks from MDS. We have Interim Assistant Superintendent Courtney Miller with us, Principal Sheehan, Principal McDonald, Principal Rainey. Nice to have everybody with us this evening. So I don't believe we have any community questions. But as folks recognize, we are in Cahill Auditorium, a little bit different for this committee, but what it does is it allows us to broadcast live streaming and also recording through BCAM. So I want to say thank you to Bill and Jerry, who are behind the scenes helping get the word out and the updates to the public so that everybody can stay informed and participate as we move forward, particularly given the status of South. So for the time being, I'm going to suggest that we continue to meet here so that we can utilize those great services and broadcast our meetings. Speaking of meetings, looking at the calendar for March. So I think 4 weeks, that's February, 1, 2, 3. 4 weeks brings us to the 7th. There is another committee that meets that evening, so if it's convenient for this group and acceptable from a timeline and schedule perspective, I'd like to suggest Monday, March 14th. When is the school committee meeting in March?
Every Monday.
Every Monday. So if we meet on the 14th, that would be okay for transition to school committee?
Can we start a little bit earlier to allow for people to transition to the next meeting? Like 5?
I don't have a problem with 5. I know that 5 might be difficult for some folks. If it works for the committee, and I think now that we do have the broadcast option available to us, 5 might be okay, because there's opportunity for folks to participate. So I don't have any problem with 5. Does anybody have any issue with 5? And what about March 14th? Does that work for folks? Okay, great. So our next meeting will be Monday, March 14th at 5 o'clock, right here in Cahill. Okay, great. And that brings us to the end of the agenda. So if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Thank you. There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.